So I'm fascinated by technology and humanity and the intersection of those two things. And people often bill me as a futurist, and they say, hey, he looks into the future a lot. And let me tell you, I didn't set out to be a futurist. What I was interested in was how technology impacts humanity. And it's amazing because a lot of times we don't understand. Just in the last 20 years or so, the digital transformation has been going, but we don't actually see what's been going on with that transformation. Think about the transformation as a 50-year time in history. So a time where humans are integrating with technology in a way that obviously we never have before, in a way that will leave humanity completely different than it's ever been. Now, when we integrate with technology, one of the things that we have to understand, like for somebody like me, is it's not so much that I just love technology, it's that I love humanity. And so I would love to be able to try to be a force in the world that tries to help the world understand what this impact of technology is going to be so that we make healthy decisions as far as what's going to happen. That's why the name of my talk is, Why Not Robot? It will be helpful to get the picture right off the bat that everything probably will not be fantastic with technology. One of the things that I've studied for a long time is what are the negative effects as well as what are the positive effects. And I ran across this quote. I quite like the quote, right? The real problem with humanity is the following. We have Paleolithic emotions, we have medieval institutions, and then we have godlike technology. And more we are being given technology that is extremely powerful. And already we can see, right, over the last 20 years, what has worked well, what has not worked well. Now, when I say we've been given extremely powerful technology, let's use an analogy. So what's happened to us is we've fallen in love with this concept of being able to have superpowers. So just the power that we have as human beings isn't enough for us. It just isn't. Because we're designed to make progress. We are built and designed to be able to do more, accomplish more, build more, be more. And so we're always looking for an edge. We're always looking for how can we create progress. Now, it's interesting when you look at things like what we watch in movies. And I'll give you two examples of interesting things. Almost every movie that we see today that looks at the future, looks at this post-apocalyptic, dark future, dystopian. Matrix, the Terminator, The Road. Right? Whenever we look into the future, I'm not sure why it is, but as human beings, we seem to only see this dark future where machines take over and where life is worse than it is today. At the same time, one of the most popular series that we watch today is Marvel. So there's a series of Marvel movies coming out, DC movies as well. And in the Marvel movies, what we love is there are these characters, and every character has a superpower or a combination of superpowers. So we can take Iron Man, for example. Iron Man depends on robotics. And so Tony Stark extends himself by using robotics to be able to have more power than what a normal human would have. Now, if you follow Marvel Universe, and I hope you do, because you won't understand this next thing I'm going to say. It's not just characters like Tony Stark, right? The latest character, the latest bad character, the bad guy, would be Thanos, right? And Thanos didn't just have one superpower. Thanos gathered up 6 Infinity Stones, put them in the gauntlet, and then had all the power in the universe and destroyed half the universe with a click of his fingers in the last movie. And those of us who appreciate Marvel, we're a little nervous right now about how that's going to get fixed. Now, if you don't know what I just said, I need you to raise your hand. Just raise your hand if you have no idea what I'm talking about. Because you need to get a life. All right? I need you, sir, to watch some movies. Because when you don't understand these critical things, it's hard for me to use these metaphors. But whether it's Marvel or whether it's DC, whatever you like, understand the concept that we have fallen in love with the idea of being able to have a superpower, and we are building them. Now, we call this machine intelligence, right? And it's a field. Think of it as an ecosystem, machine intelligence is. So it's a collection of technologies that give us more power than we have ever had, and we are just at the front end. We are literally just at a crossroads right now between just being human or being human with machine intelligence. Now, One of the things I want you to understand about machine intelligence, a perfect example of this, David Ferrucci, who is one of the developers on the IBM Watson team, he was giving a talk. And when he's giving a talk, a young person from the audience said, hey, sir, can Watson think like a human being? Can it think? And I loved David's answer. He said, well, Watson can think like a submarine can swim. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. And what he was getting across is that we are not trying to build machines that think like human beings. Let go of your bias for just a second. We were raised with this belief that our brain was the most sophisticated computing device that has ever been made. And that is not true. It's just a bias that we have. We have a bias because we have a brain, because our species depends on a brain. And so in school, they've taught us that the brain is this magical, wonderful thing. And I get questions sometimes from audiences that say, hey, when will we build a computer, that can process like a human brain? And I have to explain, we have no intention of doing that. If you really understand the human brain, like our brain is built to be able to take in lots of different data, and we know a little bit about a lot of different things. Our brain is not built to focus on one thing for hours and hours and hours. Right? Our brain is not built to look at millions and millions of pieces of data every day and try to coordinate those. Our brain is not that. In fact, it's funny because I can look at any audience, and yeah, I know it's post-lunch, right? But I can look at any audience, and while I'm talking, there'll be somebody in here, I've only been talking for 6 minutes and 53 seconds, and you cannot even focus on me this long. You already are looking at me and a squirrel. Because our brain is not the fantastic computing device that everybody says it is. And that's the first bias that I'd like you to just get rid of if you're going to understand what happens to us from now on. We are going to be able to extend our capabilities in amazing ways. But you have to understand that our brain is not the fantastic computing device that people think it is. Now, a way maybe that I could explain this, I mentioned that there is a machine intelligence ecosystem, okay? So let's think about it like this. This is a list of the different technologies that are in this ecosystem. And it's everything from robotics to AI to voice or hearing or any type of sensor to deep learning, machine learning, cognitive computing, right? There's a lot of new technologies that are starting to come together. And a lot of these technologies are incredibly powerful on their own. Like we can just talk about AI for a minute. And I can tell you there's 6, 7 different subspecies just of AI. And what I mean is software that can make a decision like a human. And of course, we're training AIs today to make a lot of decisions much better than humans make. And that's hard, again, for a lot of people to take because they're used to humans making all decisions and an assumption that we make better decisions than machines. But if you really think about that, and you really think about some of the decisions people around you have made, yeah. Machines can't do worse, all right? Let's be honest about that, all right? So it isn't just that we have these technologies, it's that we're starting to weave them together. And so what's happening now, just like I told you, Thanos has 6 infinity stones on his gauntlet, and that's what gave Thanos more power than anybody else in the universe. And I can't wait to see how we're going to reverse that, right? And I know you can't wait either, and it's coming in the next movie. I have my theories, but I'm not going to tell you because this is recorded. And if I'm wrong, it'll look horrible a year from now. So I'm just going to tell you I do know the answers. But we are able to now mix these just like Thanos could mix, 6 infinity stones. So for example, we can mix artificial intelligence with NLP, natural language processing, and machine learning. And then what we have is we have an AI that can talk to us, and it's intelligent and getting smarter because it has machine learning, right? So we combine 3 things, and again, I want you to think about this, a device that can talk to us, that is learning all the time, and it is an AI, so it has some amount of intelligence. We have that device in our home, of course, right? We call it an Alexa or a Google Home. And I don't know how long, some of you have one or how long you've had one, but it's getting smarter at an increasing rate. They're starting to build it into lots of other devices. You can buy a Echo clock now, right? You can just talk to the clock, right? So this will basically be built into all kinds of devices, and we'll just talk to it, and it's got intelligence. And not only does it have intelligence, when you talk about superpowers, you think about how well an Alexa can hear. Just talking about one superpower. Right? You know how Superman can hear, like special super hearing? So the Alexa in my house, I've got a few of them, but I think about one is I can get way across the room from it, and I did a test just to see how superpower its hearing was. So I went across the room and I whispered, Alexa, play Aerosmith. And Alexa hears me, plays Aerosmith, it's fantastic. So a little bit later, one of my kids walked in the room. I whispered from across the room, something really critical, didn't hear me at all. So I tried it with my wife, tried it with other kids, and I found out that Alexa hears me way better than any human being. It has a superpower. It's amazing. And not only that, it does everything I tell it. That's even better. We are combining these superpowers, and I'm not sure people understand today as we sit here the impact of that and what that means. But I want to paint a little bit of a picture for you so maybe you see it better. And again, the reason this is so important to me is because I understand the impact. I mean, as somebody that spends a lot of time thinking about the future, I care about kids and grandkids. And there are many of you in here, some of you I'm looking at that are fairly young. Your kids, certainly your grandkids, are still going to be alive at the end of this century. So shouldn't we be asking the question, what is the digital transformation going to do to these generations? And what should we do about that? What should we do to make sure that it's a healthy outcome? Like, I don't think they talk about millennials today. Millennials is so yesterday. We're on to Gen Z, but even Gen Zs aren't being born anymore, right? We're on to Gen A. Gen As are being born today. I've never heard a speaker yet get up and talk about Gen A. They seem to be still stuck on pounding on millennials, which I don't understand. Now, Gen A is going to be massively impacted by machine intelligence because they're going to grow up in a world where more and more they are integrating with machines that can do physical tasks they can't do, they can make decisions better than they can make. So they're going to integrate their lives with machines in a way that makes their life safer, more convenient. This is what's going to define the Gen As, who again are being born now. But we can go on. We can say, well, what about the Gen Bs? They're certainly going to be impacted by humans being augmented. When we move from mobile devices to wearables to implantables, and people are implanting retinal projection, they're implanting brain-computer interfaces, memory modules so that your memory is improved, because we're going to have all of those things fairly soon. Generation B is going to be completely impacted by the fact that they can be augmented. They may not look any different, but they'll have subdermal augmentations that will allow them to connect with technology and do things that today would seem magical to us. But that will create an interesting problem with Gen C. When we get up to Gen C, we're literally going to have problems with digital class structure. We're going to have classes in schools where there's a class for the augmented kids and a class for the unaugmented kids. Think about that for a minute and what that's going to be like. Or at work, when you're competing with somebody for a job, and one of the questions they ask you is, what are the augmentations that you have? And if you don't have the augmentations that somebody else has, you may not be hired. Right? This is the world that we're moving into. There are social implications. There are a lot of interesting things that I think we need to be thinking about now. Now, if I were to get a little crazier, maybe paint it for you just even a different way. I told you that the digital transformation is about 50 years, right? So think about the year 2050, because it's 2000 to 2050. 2050 might be the line where we move into what's called transhumanism. So moving from being just Homo sapiens into other species. In other words, we're augmented in such a way that we're not even completely Homo sapien anymore. Right? So if you look at what some people think, they say, okay, well, let's look at how the species break up. And we go, all right, well, after transhumanism, okay, which may only be 30 years away, we break into Homo luditis, right? So people who just are not, they don't like technology and they basically step away from it. Not good or bad people, they just choose to be off the grid. But then you're going to break into Homo optimus, right? Homo optimus is wearable optimized. They have tons of wearable technologies to be able to do things that a normal Homo sapien couldn't do, which makes it easy to understand. Homo hybridus, which is now they're implant optimized. You have the retinal projection. You have the brain-computer interfaces. You're connected to the grid in real time, just at the speed of thought. And then you go further and you say, well, Homo cybernetus, now we add bionics. So now we add physical augmentation on top of just the intellectual augmentation that you have. And then we can go all the way up to Homo machinus, which is now, there's hard to be a distinction with your onboard AI between your thoughts and the AI's thoughts. Now, if this seems like science fiction to you, I hope you understand all I'm doing is extrapolating the seeds that are already planted. Now, why not robot? So coming down the other side, obviously, we're going to have robot. We're going to have cognitive machines, right? We're going to have robots that have AIs built into them. By the way, if you've seen all the Boston robotics with the robots doing backflips, this week they bought an AI company so they could put a smarter brain inside of their robots. Right? Then we go to robotus hybridus, so more like human-like, human-shaped robots. And then you go down to replicants. So now we're talking about Blade Runner, right? Going all the way there. So you can see kind of the human line and the robot line come together at some extent. Now, again, if you think this is crazy, extrapolate a little bit what happens when we add nanotech and biotech to infotech. Because we are quickly going to add nanotech and biotech, which is going to allow us to rewire our bodies to be able to have some of these things that I'm talking about right now. Now, I don't know if I'm right or wrong about this, but what I do know is we should care. We should care about where things are going to go for our kids and grandkids, and we should care about what technology's impact is going to be. Because when nobody cares, when everybody's just an iPhone user, and nobody understands the social implications of these things, then nobody asks this question of, will it be a better world, or will it be the Matrix? And right now, all we can see is the Matrix. And what I want to be is a voice in the world that says, hey, wait, it doesn't have to be dystopian. It could be utopian. All right, I want you to do something for me. I want you to hold your hand out and just hold the hand of the person next to you. Just hold it. You can go both sides if you got people on both sides. Hold the hands and don't let go until I tell you. All right, this is fantastic. Just hold it. Just lean into the feeling. I want you to understand something. The digital transformation will give us powers that we've never had before. And a lot of people are scared of that. But what I would tell you is there is nothing in history so far that would suggest that we will go backwards. We have for thousands of years become more humane. We have become more enlightened and more progressive. In fact, when I heard all the speakers this morning speak, it reinforces for me that we are always making progress. So I am what they call a rational utopianism, right, or utopist. So I believe that the world will be better. And I believe the world will be better because there's two types of connection, and we're getting better at both. One type of connection is just machines and technology and how we're connecting things that have never been connected before. But the other type of connection is that one. We are getting better as human beings at connecting with everybody, at not judging people, at valuing everybody. And we're getting better at understanding we need this feeling. We need this feeling that you have right now. And I hope that all of you can move forward with this feeling and at the same time understand the feeling of what happens when we connect with technology. Because we will have a utopian world if we create it. We will have a dystopian world if we create it.